Hi there, my name's Susan and I have made up some kits for the Also Festival to enable you to make a jellyfish lantern. So if you're watching this video, it probably means you have purchased one of our jellyfish kits. Thank you very much. And I have put instructions inside, but in case they're a bit tricky, I'm doing you a video because it's always much easier to see how to do something if you just watch. So in your kit, you should have a set of instructions which you can follow, a nice piece of watercolor paper, which I'll tell you about in a minute, a stick. This is going to be for supporting your jellyfish. It is a piece of willow, so it should be quite bendy, and that will enable you to bounce your jellyfish up and down a bit at the end. You will have a Chinese lantern. It may be pink, it may be white, and there will be a wire that goes with that lantern, which should look like this. You will have a nice little plastic container of some ink and a brush. And the last thing you should have is one of these bath puff things. I think in the instructions I call it a scrunchie because I don't think it really has a name. And I have disassembled that by taking off the piece of string which secures it, and I've left that in there because that's going to be useful for us. And the last thing you should have is a little set of fairy lights. So the first thing you need to do is to take your wire and just bend it very slightly so that it's not straight. And the reason we're doing this is because when you insert it into your Chinese lantern, it will mean that the lantern's not too spherical. It will make it slightly flatter, which is better for a jellyfish shape. Now, if you've never done one of these before, they're quite simple. The wire is going to go inside the lantern to stretch it out. And on one end, you'll see a couple of little lugs. Now, they're normally at the top of the lantern and they insert into the two little loops there, but we're actually going to put it upside down, and the reason being that this is a wider hole which will give us more room for our tentacles to spread out. So we're going to put the wire in now after having bent it slightly. So just insert it with the flat piece towards the small hole, like so, and you should see it just starting to push out the lantern, and then the two little lugs should sit nicely inside those holes, those loops. You might need to adjust the top slightly so that you've got your wire sitting across the top. So that's you ready to do your tentacles now. So you can put that to the side, and if you've bent it slightly, it should be a tiny bit flat, not completely spherical. Right, the next thing you need to do is take your bath puff. If you're right-handed, then it's probably best to put it on your right arm. So you just stretch it all the way up your arm, like so, and then you've got a free hand to do the next bit. So you take your lights out of their little packet, and they may well, it depends on which ones I've given you, but they might have a little plastic tab to take out to get them to work. If not, these ones don't, then they should work straight away. So you could actually test them now. I think in the instructions I ask you to test them once they're in, but of course that's silly because if they don't work, then you've already inserted them. Now you'll find that the end is wrapped around. So just unravel that slightly until you can get the end ready to spring out, like so. So leave it as a bit of a spring, just tease it out slightly as a spring, then put the battery on the table or on the floor, holding the end, sort of kind of almost gather up some of it. And then what you're going to do is you're going to pull the end of the scrunchie towards the battery end. And then as you pull the lights out in your hand, you're stretching them through the scrunchie all the way to the end until you get to the end. And when you get to the end and you've got your little bit of light at the end, it's a good idea to just kind of insert it into the end of the scrunchie, bend it round, twist it, anything that will secure it on the end so it doesn't all pop back out again. So you should now have your scrunchie with your battery at the end, and when these go on, they'll look lovely in the night time when you have your lantern for the lantern parade. So the next thing you do is just fold it in half and then half again. And that's going to give you the effect of 4 tentacles. Don't worry about the fact that 2 of them are looped together here, because it won't really show up when you actually put the lights on at night. And you'll be able to pull this one up to give yourself a little bit of animation. So now keep the centerpiece, pick up your lantern, and you're going to, this is the tricky part because you don't want to catch it too much. So try and kind of hold it in your hand like this. Insert it through the lantern and grab it from the other end. And this is where you're going to attach it. So you've pulled it through like so. And if you grab your wire at the same time, which should be sitting across the top of the lantern, you can now hold the 2 together, and this is where your string comes in handy. So you're going to just keep the string as a loop, loop it through both the wire and the fold in the scrunchie, back on itself, and there you can tighten that so that now you should have a lovely set of tentacles. They might be needing a little bit stretched out, like mine are, but they should look really good in the dark. So now you've done that, the next thing you want to do is decorate your lantern. So get your ink and your brush, open your bag, get out your brush, and inside this little capsule you've got some ink, quite concentrated ink, so it should make some nice marks on your lantern. Now what I've done is I've put some masking tape around the little capsule to make sure that it doesn't leak, but this masking tape is also going to be very useful for you in a minute. So I would take about half of it off first and use half of it to make sure that this piece doesn't slip. So I would just wrap that little piece of tape around the wire again, just to make sure. Now what you could do at this stage is, if you wanted, you could take your battery pack, thread that through and attach that to the top with the masking tape as well, because that means it will be easy for you to find the switch and switch it on later. So you could just attach that to the top, and actually by doing that I've kind of squished my lantern in a bit. Now my tentacles seem to have got a bit stuck in there. I think they've got a little bit pulled up when I pulled them up, so just pull them back down again. Now the decorating. Get your brush, pull off your last bit of tape. Now try and keep that tape because we need that piece of tape. Even if it's got a bit of ink on it, it should be okay. Just maybe pop it on your piece of watercolor paper for now. Now the ink has got a flat bottom, so just be very careful when you take the top off, because you don't want to drop it all over the tent or the table. Just place that down and dip your brush in and just do whatever you like. You know, the ink should be quite watery on the lantern to start with, and then as you go it will dry nicely and create nice patterns. Now in real jellyfish they tend to have kind of lines going downwards, but that doesn't mean to say you have to do that. You can do anything you like. You can do dots, stripes, zigzags, whatever you like. Just have fun decorating your jellyfish. Now you probably have some ink left at the end, and that's where your piece of watercolor paper comes in, because I've actually given you 2 activities in one. Now this ink acts beautifully as kind of like a watercolor ink on paper, so you could have a bit of fun just doing a design on here, maybe a tree, maybe draw the lake, maybe you could even draw just like a little seascape or anything you like, but you'll find that the ink should go quite nicely on this paper. I mean, it will be quite watery, but it will give you that lovely watery effect that you get with watercolor paint. And once it dries, you can apply more and you can get some lovely effects just using the ink on the paper. And I mean, I'm just starting to try and do a little seascape, but you can do anything you like, and actually it would be nice to leave it to dry and then apply more ink. But you should have plenty left after you've done your decorating to have a little go at a watercolor. Now the last thing you need to do Once you've done all of those, is to get your stick. And I think mine fell on the floor a minute ago, so if you pardon me 1 second. Oh, that's quite funny. I'm on a balcony, and when it fell off the table, it's fallen to the bottom of the balcony. So I might just have to pause while I go and get it. I'm back. Here's the stick that fell off the balcony. Now, as I said earlier, it's a piece of willow. It should be fairly flexible, so you should be able to bend it or straighten it a little bit. If by any chance it breaks, I've left a few spare ones at the info tent, so you can go and get another one. Anyway, the best thing to do is to attach it to the top of the lantern so that you can have a little bit of bounce in your jellyfish. Now, hopefully, this piece of masking tape will be enough. If you take the string, you can tie it. You could even just make a little slot in there if you wanted to try and tie it on to stop it from falling off. But basically the masking tape is really just to stop it from slipping down the stick. So as long as you tie it on and then just place the masking tape on top, it should be enough just to secure it, enough for you to be able to bounce it up and down. Just wind it round in a sort of figure of 8. And there we have your jellyfish lantern. I switch it on. I don't know if it's dark enough yet for you to see the lights. If I can actually find what's happened to the little switch. Thought I'd secured it at the top. All the suspense. The suspense is killing me. Here we go. Got it. Fallen inside. Right, here we are. There we go. And then yours will be beautifully decorated, and at night time it will look fantastic in the dark, and you'll be able to bounce it up and down as you go into the lantern parade. Hooray! Yes, make sure you come up to the woods 8 o'clock with your lanterns. It's going to be spectacular. You must come.